Very, very, very excited for our upcoming session from Vassiliki, and the session title is Movie Groovy, Building a Mood-Based Recommender with Python and Empathy. The title itself is incredibly cheering, and I'm super excited to have you with us. The stage is yours. Thank you.
Hello everyone, thank you for being here today. I'm truly excited to be at PyLadies to share the journey behind Movie Groovy, a GenAI powered recommender that understands emotion. So, what's the connection between a pizza, a remote, and a clock? Let me tell you a very quick story. Once a year, my brother Manolis and his wife Jenny come to visit me here in Athens. We are all massive movie lovers and we have a sweet tradition. We always watch something together while having dinner. So one night we ordered pizzas. My better half George took care of the food, and my job was the movie. So I took it very seriously. I opened all my streaming apps and started suggesting things. But it got complicated really fast. My brother had already seen almost everything. George only wanted something with action, and Jenny wanted something light, something cozy. 40 minutes later, I was still scrolling, staring at the screen. The pizzas were getting cold, and I was getting frustrated. And in the end, we just gave up. We got something familiar, something we had already seen before, just so we could finally eat. Has this ever happened to you? That feeling of having an endless choice, but still being unable to choose anything. So that experience stuck with me. I started wondering, what if I could flip this entire recommendation system on its head? Instead of the starting point being your decade-long viewing history, which often just leads to the same old suggestions, what if the starting point was simply, how do you feel tonight? That simple, empathetic idea is where Movie Groovy was born. It turns out my pizza dilemma wasn't unique. When I asked some people, the frustration became crystal clear. 1 in 3 people subscribe to more than one streaming platform. Half of those admit they actively struggle to find something to watch. And almost everyone spends 10 to 20 minutes deciding. In an age of endless content, the discovery process is still fundamentally broken. So I set 3 core design principles that would guide the development of Movie Groovy. The first principle was the biggest shift. Start with the mood. Instead of asking users to search by a specific title or a generic genre, I simply ask them, how do you feel? I then match them directly with titles that fit that specific emotional vibe. Second, privacy-first design. I wanted this to be an emotionally sensitive space. That means there is no required login and absolutely no personalized data is ever stored. Every single session is temporary, so users stay anonymous by design. And finally, principle number 3, explain the recommendation. I knew I had to build trust in the system, so every recommendation includes a short phrase, a simple "why this?" that allows the user to instantly understand the emotional reasoning behind the suggestion. Let's see how those principles translate into a practical workflow. It all starts with the user vibe. They might tell us they want a cozy and chill vibe, and specifically, they only want to see titles available on Netflix and Disney. Then the system takes over in 4 rapid asynchronous steps. First, the transformation and search phase. The system immediately takes that emotional vibe and transforms it into a vector embedding. a numerical representation of the emotional tone. It then uses that vector to perform a fast similarity search, matching emotional tone and platform availability. Second, the enrichment phase. The core results are immediately enriched with crucial metadata, details like the synopsis, the duration, and final availability checks. Third, the explanation generation. The system takes that enriched data and, using an LLM, generates that short plain language explanation for each movie, detailing precisely why it fits that specific vibe. Finally, the presentation. It presents the user up to 10 recommendations that are not only relevant, but are also emotionally aligned. This whole loop brings together the user's current feeling, the AI's reasoning, and full explainability in a transparent, simple, and satisfying way. Now let's talk about what's actually running under the hood. This entire stack is built with Python and open source tools. At the center of the operation is a fast API backend. This is the main server that handles all requests coming in from the frontend. It then routes those requests into a LangGraph workflow, which is the core orchestrator. LangGraph gives me precise control because it allows me to replace fragile sequential calls with a stateful cyclic graph architecture. This is crucial for enabling safe and retries and robust error recovery. If the LLM call fails, the graph state allows for instant retries without rerunning the entire search. Inside this workflow, I rely on LangChain to handle two main phases: discovery and enrichment. For discovery, I leverage the multimodal embedding capabilities of Gemini model to convert the user's subjective emotional text into a vector. This vector is then passed to Qdrant, which is optimized for high-speed approximate nearest neighbor search. I chose Qdrant over other solutions because it provides the low latency similarity lookup essentially for my overall goal. For enrichment, I pull the rest of the metadata from a traditional MongoDB. I then call the LLM again to generate that short explanation. All of this runs asynchronously. The frontend gets a rapid 202 response and then continuously polls for updates until the final beautiful results are ready. This design makes the entire system fast, modular, and easy to scale or debug. So with the Python stack and the core design principles now defined, I could finally see how my approach stood up against the status quo. I needed to visually map the emotional journey that the average user was actually experiencing on traditional platforms. And what I found was not one user path, but two fundamentally different emotional journeys. Most platforms prioritize your viewing history. You start with excitement, but as you scroll endlessly, you feel a noticeable drop in energy. That's decision fatigue setting in. You end up choosing something familiar, not because you love it, but simply because you are tired of looking. It becomes a passive habit. With Movie Groovy, you start with how you feel. The system's suggestion helps you feel seen instantly. The match resonates because it meets your needs at that very moment. The result is a positive emotional payoff. It's not a passive task, but an active, satisfying act of self-care. That core shift from being history-driven to being feeling-driven was what I cared about most. But before I landed on this solid asynchronous Python-based setup, I actually tried something very different. And I want to be honest, it didn't go well. Let's quickly go through how the system evolved from a monolithic script to the architecture we have today. At first, everything, the search, the enrichment, the explanation, was built in one big single AI agent. It worked barely. It was incredibly fragile and a nightmare to debug. Now, as I mentioned, the architecture uses LangGraph workflows. I have clearly defined separate nodes for search, enrichment, and generation. This change made the system infinitely more modular, far more reliable, and genuinely easy to expand. That architectural change had a massive impact on performance. In the first version, it could take anywhere from 30 to 40 seconds to return results, and the process was unstable. This overhaul delivered a 90% reduction in average latency, moving from an unstable 30 to 40 second return to a consistent 3-second P95 response time. That is the measurable difference of using an asynchronous graph model. And then there is the cost. This is essential when building with generative AI. In the first version, because it was so poorly orchestrated, every step involved multiple unnecessary LLM calls. It was heavy and expensive to run. By integrating the vector search with Qdrant, I was able to decouple the emotional matching from the expensive LLM generation. The LLM is now only called twice per request, once for the embedding generation and one for the final explanation. This dramatically reduced my token consumption and directly translated into lower cloud API costs. Explainability was another massive pain point in the early days. The early version would sometimes give you a random, nonsensical reason, or sometimes just skip the explanation entirely. Now every single suggestion includes a short, clear explanation about why it fits your vibe. It feels transparent and respectful. There were also some failures. In the beginning, inputs in Greek language were frequently ignored, which is really bad user experience if you are aiming at Greek users. Metadata was inconsistent and sometimes missing critical details. The current version fixed these human-centric flows. It's entirely language-aware and it uses consistent metadata. Apart from the user side, what really stood out from the user feedback were 4 essential elements that made the difference. The fact that they didn't need to log in gave users a true sense of safety and low pressure. People consistently mentioned how helpful it was to see why a movie was suggested. It felt personal without being invasive. Doing the whole process in just a few seconds helped maintain the user's flow and build trust. The overall tone of the entire application is calm, neutral, and quiet. And sometimes, truly, that is all people need. So what are the key takeaways from the Movie Groovy journey? First, your own frustrations are valid design signals. Don't ignore that feeling when your pizza is getting cold. Second, empathy is a technical skill. It directly affects what you choose to build and how it ultimately makes your user feel. And finally, if you want to try building GenAI powered applications, you absolutely do not need a huge team. That means Python expertise, open source, and empathy can go a very, very long way. Even though Movie Groovy is tailored to the Greek audience, you can absolutely try it out right now at moviegroovy.gr. And if you are building something solo or working on a small internal team, I truly hope this journey gives you both ideas and the encouragement you need to start. Thank you.
Beautiful. And the understanding that we can have from starting how we feel, how we vibe in the world which is more structural and procedural. This session was a breather for me, and hope the audience had a lot of takeaways out there as well. Thank you so much, Vassiliki. And up next, we have amazing speakers lined up for you. Stay tuned.